Now that grow is gone. Medication, abortion, birth control, easy by Sophia N. Okay, she is a clinical associate professor of Stanford. Pandia Health, the CEO. Let us talk with her. Uh, so let me bring you to the side. Okay, go ahead, Sophia. I'm going to be high tech coolie for you, moving slides. I have no idea what is this, birth control pills, or this a period is optional. It is absolutely, I'm a just high tech coolie moving the slides for you. So tell me.
Thank you so much for having me here. And I'm very excited to share the latest and the greatest and what every educated person should know for their health and anybody around them that has a uterus. So if we can move to the next slide, that'd be great.
You can move, actually, you can move
Oh,
yourself.
great. I
Yeah.
can just click on it, it should move.
Yeah, on the right left side, you see that slides 2 to 40. Do you see 2 to 44?
No,
You,
I don't.
you don't see? Or just to check on
I'll
the
try.
right side.
Let me see. Well, the arrows don't work. The clicking doesn't work. No, I think it's only you.
Okay.
Okay, sorry.
Okay.
So, the national context, just so everybody knows about adolescent reproductive health in the United States, the US has one of the highest teen pregnancy rates in the industrial world. 34% of adolescent females become pregnant before they reach the age of 20. I think that number has gone down. This is from 2011. And then I think instead of 82%, it's now 75% of teen pregnancies are unplanned. And so we have the opportunity to prevent 75% of teen pregnancies. US teens are less likely to use contraception, less likely to have access to reproductive health services and sex ed than the rest of the entire world. So, those are places we can intervene to decrease teenage pregnancy. Next slide. So, cases going to the Supreme Court of the United States. If you're not aware, there is a Texas case with the Fifth Circuit, and it alleges that the FDA wrongfully approved mifepristone, which is one of two drugs used for medication abortion. And medication abortion can be used up to 10 or 12 weeks of pregnancy, depending on if you're following the WHO or the FDA recommendations. Mifepristone is an anti-progesterone, and progesterone is the hormone of pregnancy. However, mifepristone is safer than Viagra, safer than penicillin, safer than Tylenol. It was approved in 2020 and has been used by more than 5.6 million women in the USA. So it is crazy to take that medication away. Misoprostol is the second drug that is used in conjunction with mifepristone for medication abortion, and it can be used alone, but it's not as effective. It's only 76% effective versus if you use the two together, 97% effective. And then if you use it alone, then you get more side effects such as diarrhea. And currently, it's going back to the Fifth Circuit and then to the Supreme Court. But if the Supreme Court does with this, as what we saw them do with Roe or Dobbs, then we will expect that it's possible that mifepristone will become undone by the Supreme Court, which will be a travesty. There are 17 liberal states, and yay, Washington State, but boo, New York and California is not part of these liberal 17 states that is actually suing the other way, telling the FDA that they have to provide mifepristone. And so, California, if the first law were to be upheld, then we would lose access to mifepristone and we could only use misoprostol, which again is only 76% effective and has more side effects. And that to me is just wrong as a person who lives in California, that I would have to go to Washington to hashtag get the good stuff. So we need to get our people to sign on to that case if that other case goes the way I think it's going to go. Next slide. So number one, what you need to know is there's a
By the
website.
way, Sophia, can I bring you? Do you have a second monitor? Can I bring you that we can focus on you at the full screen? You can read. You can see the PowerPoint in other screen, or is it just you want me to keep it as it is?
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
No, just what I want to do is sometimes is a much better that you come on the screen and talk with them face to face. rather
got
than,
it.
yeah, some.
Yeah,
Maybe I can put the screen PowerPoint and then bring you to the screen. You can talk about that
yeah,
slide if you don't mind.
yeah, that'd be great if you can do
Okay,
that.
go ahead and tell me what this slide about.
Yes. So this slide is plancpills.org. It's important that everybody know that there's a website. It's a nonprofit. I know the founder. I absolutely trust her. And you just go to plancpills.org and you type in your state and it tells you what your options are. And so it tells you if it's legal, if it's illegal, if it's legal up to 6 weeks, if it's legal up to 12 weeks, and they're constantly updating it. They also have a free medical hotline. So if you have any questions about medication abortion, then they will answer them. But if you use one of the companies that are listed there, and it's about $120 to get a medication abortion, which is cheaper than anything that I know of going in person or seeing a doctor to get medication abortion, then that doctor should be able to handle it. But if somehow they're not available, there is a free medical hotline. And then there's also a free legal hotline because maybe it's illegal in your state. However, you're still in dire consequences, then you can consult that legal hotline. So that's what that slide is.
Okay, next slide I'm going to do. I'm going to show you this next slide. Uh, that is
Okay.
the one, or do you want me to go next one?
Yes, stay on this slide. So this slide is know about this website after Roe fell. It's by the Center for Reproductive Rights, another nonprofit. And as you can see here, each of the states are color coded, and the redder it is, the scarier it is. The greener it is, the safer it is. And again, you can click on your state and see what the laws are. Some states require parental notification, some require parental consent. And as I alluded to before, some have a 6-week ban, a 10-week ban, a 16-week ban. And again, it's changing week to week based on different states. And some states have a total ban on abortion, which is just frightening. Next slide.
Okay.
Beware of, quote, pregnancy centers. So if you Google abortion clinic or pregnancy center on Google, about 80% of the time, they're going to serve you a crisis pregnancy center. And what that is they are not abortion providers. They are religious organizations whose sole purpose is to scare you that abortion is dangerous. They've been known to tell people lies such as abortion will make you sterile. It does not. Abortion will make you go crazy. It does not. Abortion is associated with drug abuse. It is not. The research has actually shown women who wanted abortions and got the abortions did better than women who wanted an abortion and didn't get an abortion because of laws, because of finances, etc. So it could have been a biased study because people who want abortions are usually trying to go to college, have work, have other obligations, where somebody who doesn't want an abortion might not have the same aspirations or push or etc. But people who are able to get abortions that wanted abortions did better than people who wanted an abortion and couldn't get an abortion. So beware of these crisis pregnancy centers. There are actually more pregnancy centers than abortion providers in this country, and many states have used women and infant and children funds, which are supposed to go to poor women and support women. Instead, those funds have been funneled to these crisis pregnancy centers. Next slide, as you've shown here, is the National Network of Abortion Funds and the National Abortion Federation. So there are a bunch of bad websites out there, but these two are safe. Abortionfunds.org and prochoice.org. Abortionfunds.org, you see all the little purple. If you need money for an abortion to take care of your child while you are running off to get an abortion, or just a transportation, housing, or abortion, these people can help you get money. However, I just saw a horrible article saying they have run out of money. So please, if you can donate. It's nonprofit, it's tax deductible, and you can donate either nationally or you can donate to a specific state. If like you love Georgia and you want to help women in Georgia, then donate to the Georgia Abortion Fund as opposed to the National Abortion Fund. And then the National Abortion Federation are trustworthy doctors, nurse practitioners that are safe to get abortions, that aren't going to lie to you or do anything strange, and are very high quality physicians and practitioners. Next slide. Delete your period apps. So know that I went to MIT and I have lots of friends that are in forensic computing. And if you were ever to go to court, if there was a subpoena or whatever, if it was ever on your phone, ever linked to the cloud, which, you know, our phones are always linked to the cloud against our will, then they can find it. And if the policeman or the lawyer knows the right person to ask, they will find that information. So if you are in a abortion hostile state, delete your period apps, keep it on paper. And even then, I know as a psycho pre-med from before, if I were to turn you in, and then you wouldn't be applying in the same medical school year as I was. So I could knock out all of my female competition by reporting them for abortion, whether or not it's true, because the hassle of you going through that would mess you up. But know that there are states with bounty laws, specifically Texas, that will pay $10,000 minimum per abortion that you report that's illegal. So that's a great way to make money, but it's also a great way to harass people. So if you have a uterus or know anyone who has a uterus, do not record your periods on your phone.
You mean this, Dr. Sophia? You said that they will be discriminated against admission in the medical school because of these apps.
Because of that, but I'm saying that if I knew that you had an abortion and it is illegal in Texas and I reported you, then, you know, that would probably take you out of medical school application if you were in jail or if you were fined $10,000 for breaking the law in the state of Texas. So just know that there are people like that out there in this world. Not me, but as pre-meds, we are often competitors. Number 5, optimize your birth control. Make sure everybody knows the birth control options. So this is a pop quiz right now. Before we show you the next slide, picture in your mind all the birth control methods from most effective to least effective. And I bet you a lot of you all are going to get the number 1 wrong because a lot of doctors don't even know this. So, ta-da! The most effective birth control is implant. You stick it in the arm, it lasts 3 years. Can you believe that beats vasectomy, which is the gold standard? Then comes IUD with hormone, which beats tubal ligation, which is the female version of vasectomy, which then beats the IUD, copper, the shot, the ring, the patch, the pill, condoms, withdrawal, and then fertility awareness method. And of course, somebody's going to say, what about abstinence? Abstinence is great, but people that have taken an abstinence pledge, very few of them are able to execute that. You literally have to be a saint or a priest. And even then. So know that of the methods out there, the implant beats the vasectomy, beats IUD with hormone, beats tubal ligation, IUD, copper, then shot, ring, patch, pill. Know that this is the efficacy. And this is a great chart by the CDC on the effectiveness of family planning methods. Next slide. Okay, so the latest, but not the greatest. We always think whatever's new is the best thing out there, but I'm about to show you a couple new things that are not the best thing out there. So next slide. Phexxi has been out there. It's an acid contraceptive gel. It works by keeping the pH in the vagina acidic, which decreases sperm motility. The crazy part is it's $353 for 12 doses, and you have to use it every time you have sex an hour before. And if you have sex twice or 3 times, you have to use it each time afterwards. And 15% of people who use this method will get pregnant versus spermicide, which is a lot cheaper at like $5, $10. 21% will get pregnant on spermicide. I would never use it alone. I would use condoms plus this contraceptive gel, condoms plus spermicide. And you cannot use it with the contraceptive vaginal ring because it will eat the vaginal ring and defeat the vaginal ring. So it's new, but I'm not a fan because why not just use spermicide, or why not use one of the other methods that we had talked about before? Next slide. So over-the-counter birth control. I applaud over-the-counter birth control. However, know that there's only been one pill that's been approved for over-the-counter. It's a progesterone-only pill. It's called the O pill, and it was actually approved in 1973, but it was taken off market in 2005. Not because it's bad or anything like that, but because everything else is better. And the important thing to know about progesterone-only pills, and specifically this one and the standard one, if you are late taking the pill by 3 hours and you had sex in the past 5 days, then you need emergency contraception. And if you are late by 3 hours, you have to wait and not have any sex or use a condom for the next 3 days while the hormone level goes back up to normal. So know that there is a pill going over the counter. It's going to be the best thing, most effective method that's over the counter. But if you can get access to a physician online in person, then you at least have access to 40 different birth control pills, the patch, the ring, and if you can get access to a doctor in person, the IUD, the implant, and the shot. So hashtag get the good stuff and know that what's over the counter is not the good stuff. And then the second one that might be coming soon is a 20 microgram pill. And if you're under the age of 30, we do not recommend a 20 microgram pill for your bone density. We recommend at least 30 micrograms of estrogen until 30 for your bone density, particularly if you are a minority and lactose intolerant and not getting enough calcium. If you're big boned and you have a lot of calcium each day and you do weight bearing exercise, then maybe it's okay, but we don't know. But I do know that if we put you on 30 micrograms until you're 30 years old, you should be good. Less than that, there's concern about bone density. Next slide. So the good stuff, there is a new progesterone-only pill, drospirenone, and this one has a 24-hour window of forgiveness. So that's awesome versus the 3-hour we talked about. It's called Slind. The bad part is it's $194 a month versus your standard progesterone-only pill, $16.50, or $16 for Yasmin, which is a generic birth control pill with the same active progesterone, but also has some estrogen. The negative is you could have high potassium, but the positive is if you're a smoker or have hypertension, then this is the pill for you. There's also other contraindications such as lupus, ischemic heart disease, stroke, current breast cancer, liver cancer, and bad evil hepatitis. Next slide. And then another good option is the levonorgestrel ethinyl estradiol patch. So we used to be like anti-patch because the standard patch has a high level of estrogen and therefore increased risk of blood clot. But this one was specifically formulated to have 30 micrograms of estrogen, the same as the good birth control pills. The negative is cost $190 per month versus a birth control. However, we have a cash deal at Pandia Health for $50 a month if you want to go with that. It's not for somebody who has a BMI of 30 or greater. And if you have insurance under the Affordable Care Act, it should be available with no copay, no deductible, and that's called Twirla. So next slide. So I just want to show here, this is the geek in me wanting to show a graph. The lower area under the curve is this new patch, Twirla, how much estrogen you're exposed to. The more estrogen you're exposed to, the greater the risk of blood clot. The peaks and the valleys that you see there are what happens with a 35 microgram pill. And then that higher plateau is the old patch. So Ortho, Evra, Xulane. And so you see that the area under the curve, if you were to color that in, is about the same area as if you had a 35 microgram pill. Next slide. So some things to check if your doctor knows what they're doing or if they're not. We generally in academia recommend a monophasic pill. So the same dose every single day for 3 weeks or for the entire time that you're taking it. If your doctor has prescribed you a triphasic and you didn't specifically ask for that, then they are not up to academic standards. As I mentioned before, you want to make sure that your estrogen level is 30 micrograms until you're 30 years old. If you're 30 or above, you can do whatever you want. But if you're under 30, we want at least 30 micrograms of estrogen. And then below, I provided some studies showing that there's lower bone density if you use less than 30 micrograms of estrogen. And then another one is, in general, norgestimate is a great pill if you're not trying to skip bleeds and if you're Caucasian and potentially Latina. Desogestrel is better for those of Asian Black descent or anyone who wants to skip bleeds. It just has less breakthrough bleeding. And if you fail desogestrel, but you can drink 8 glasses of water a day, drospirenone is great. So for any physicians watching, that is some secret tips on prescribing. For any person with a uterus, those are the drugs you want to demand when you go see a physician. Next slide. I have an article where I rank all the birth control pills from most likely make you bleed, least likely make you bleed, most likely give you zits, least likely to give you zits. And if you go to bit.ly, capital P, Pandia, capital H, Health, capital A, Androgen, you can have access to this chart. Next slide. This just highlights some of the most commonly used one, and the higher the progestational activity, the less likelihood of breakthrough bleeding. The higher the androgenic activity, the greater the likelihood of zits and munchies. Next slide. So top 3 reasons for missing a pill: forgot, away from home, no new pack. The way you take care of that is you get an alarm, you get a birth control holder, you get an extra travel pack, ask your doctor for an extra pack of pills, and if your insurance won't cover it, know that most generic pills are $7 to $15, totally worth not getting pregnant. And then ask your doctor to write the prescription. Dispense 13 packs for a year or 17 packs if you're skipping the placebo, and then get a delivery service. Pandia Health can deliver in all 50 states. If you have a prescription and insurance, you pay us nothing, thanks to the Affordable Care Act, unless you want a brand name when the generic is available. And then we're available in 17 states listed below. If we're not in your state, we encourage birth control tourism. And the example I give is we are not in New Jersey or Connecticut, but who can't get to New York once a year? So if you can get to New York and be like, I'm in New York right now, then our New York doctor can legally write you a prescription, and then we can deliver to all 50 states. And you just have to get back to one of our states within a year to renew your prescription. Next is emergency contraception. Know about it. Get it in advance. Think of it like a fire extinguisher. You want it in the corner. Oh my goodness, the condom popped, or God forbid somebody was sexually assaulted, or you forgot to take 3 active pills in a row and you haven't taken 21 active pills in a row ahead of time. That's when you need emergency contraception. So nice to just have it sitting there. If the condom pops at 3 a.m., I want the medicine in the person with the uterus's mouth within 3 hours, not as soon as possible. So if it pops at 3 a.m., I want it in that person's mouth at 3:10. I don't want any cuddling, snuggling, waiting till the morning after. But know that any emergency contraceptive method, you can wait up to 5, not wait, but you can use up to 5 days after. But the sooner you use it, the more likelihood it's going to work. Methods of emergency contraception: quiz your doctor, ask them if they know that you could use the copper IUD, but more importantly, they probably don't know unless they're keeping up on the latest research, but they might. So if they do, kudos, you have a good doctor there. Hormonal IUD, that's what you see in white below the copper IUD. Next comes the prescription emergency contraception, Ella, then Plan B and its generics. And then lastly, you could take a bunch of birth control pills now and a bunch in 12 hours, but that is the least effective. So going from left to right, most effective to least effective. And if it were me, my friend, my patient, anyone listening to this lecture, I would recommend the prescription emergency contraception. Or if you're sexually assaulted and you want no chance of getting impregnated, the copper IUD is 99.99999% effective. Just it's expensive. It might give you cramps, but better that than pregnant. And you can leave it in for 10 to 12 years for birth control afterwards, or you could have it removed. So next slide. So just want to show here the number of pregnancies. In blue are Plan B and its generics, and in red is Ella, the olapristal acetate, the prescription emergency contraception. So you can see 2.5 times more pregnancies in the first 24 hours, kind of double in 72 hours, double in 0 to 5 days. So again, if it were me, my daughter, my friend, I want the lower pregnancy rate, and that is Ella or olapristal acetate. Ask your doctor to prescribe it. And under the Affordable Care Act, it should be free, no copay, no deductible. If you are going to use Plan B and its generics, please check your BMI. If your BMI is 26 or greater, doesn't work so well. If your BMI is 30 or greater, doesn't work at all. So then you need Ella or one of the IUDs. And if your BMI is 35 or greater, only the IUDs work. Next slide. So get it in advance. You don't want your house to burn down. Next slide. And then if you're in a more conservative state, birth control is more than just birth control. It's, quote, hormonal therapy to level the playing ground, not just birth control. Next slide. So I just want to put out there the idea that menstruation is so 2020. If you're bleeding every month, get with the times. You don't have to bleed every single month. And if you talk to most female physicians, they've probably skipped their periods or are currently skipping their periods, because we know that you can hashtag make periods optional. Next slide. And people say, wait, I've been told by everybody I need to bleed every month. Yes. If you're not on any medications, you better be bleeding every month, or we need to check if you're pregnant, have anorexia, have a tumor in your head, or some thyroid problem. However, we're actually bleeding more than what's, quote, natural. Dr. Beverly Strassman studies the Dogon tribe in Mali, Africa. And next slide. So, yeah, there we go. On the left is the Dogon tribe. They have 100 periods in their lives. On the right is us in the United States, 350 to 400 periods. We have enough periods for 3 other people. And the reason why is they have 8 or 9 children. How many periods do you have when you're pregnant? 0. They breastfeed for 12 to 15 to 18 months. How many periods do you have when you're exclusively breastfeeding? 0. We only have 2 children, and we breastfeed for 0, 3, or 6 months. So on the right, we're incessantly menstruating. On the left, we're pregnant or breastfeeding. So it's more natural to have fewer periods. Next slide.
Question for you. I have a question for you. What was the reason for that kind of a difference between these two tribes, American
Yes.
tribe and India, the African tribe?
Yes. So the Dogon tribe on the left, they have 8 or 9 children. We have 2 children. So they're pregnant for 9 times 9 months, which is 81 months. We're pregnant for 18 months. They breastfeed for 12 times 9 children. We breastfeed for 2 times 3 to 6 months. So
Very,
that's,
very interesting. That's why I thought that's a very good slide. Go ahead.
yeah, great question. These are the health conditions that are better having stable hormones rather than up and down, up and down, up and down each month. So acne, arthritis, depression, diabetes, seizures. If you have painful, heavy, or symptoms around PMS periods, if I get rid of your period, no longer do you have painful, heavy periods or symptoms around a period. The number one cause of anemia in a menstruating woman, menstruation. And by having fewer up and down of the lining of your uterus, popping out egg, and then the GI effects of having a period, you decrease ovarian, endometrial, and colorectal cancer. Next slide. Financial education, the number one cause of missed school and work in a person with a uterus under the age of 25 in the US of A, but also in other countries around the world, is heavy, painful periods. 10 to 45% of young teenage women miss school because of periods. And as a tiger Asian mom in Silicon Valley, I ask you, is your young person going to do better bleeding or not bleeding on their SAT? Because I've given both of my daughters the option of hashtag periods optional. And then also the Chinese Olympic swimmer, she came out of the pool, I believe this was 4 to 6 years ago, and she's like, ugh, I think I lost a millisecond because I had a cramp or was bleeding. And I was like, who is your doctor? Because if I were your doctor, there is no way you'd be bleeding anywhere near the Olympics. So if you want to be on top of your mental game, your school game, your sports game, I recommend you consider controlling when you bleed at the very least, if not hashtag periods optional. Next slide. And environmental. Those of us who bleed will use 10,000 to 13,000 tampons or pads in our lives. So those are the many reasons to go hashtag periods optional. And I think this is our second to last slide, hopefully. So it's difficult to convey that without hormones, you better have a period every single month, unless you're within the first 2 years of your period, during which it could be whack. And then otherwise, we can make hashtag periods optional using medications. Next slide. So let's make periods optional. If you want a rehash of the periods optional, go to pandiahealth.com/periods optional. At the bottom is my TEDx talk on the science and safety of not bleeding every single month. And I think hopefully that's it. Yep, that's it. Thank you for listening.
Yeah. Let me ask you, my daughter is getting married. So during the marriage and the honeymoon trips, and she doesn't want all these things. So would you suggest her something? What kind of things you suggest?
Well, given that it's coming up soon, I would recommend the birth control pill, patch, or ring, depending on her age. If she's 30 or above, then she could do the ring. The ring has a lower estrogen, but the ring for a couple of months wouldn't matter. So that's probably the easiest. You just put it in your vagina and leave it and change it every month. There's 35 days of medicine in there, and each month is only 30 days max. So you could just change it. Alternatively, she could do the patch because that definitely has enough hormone. Just change it once a week. And so normally it's 3 weeks on, 1 week, 1 week, 1 week, and then off and bleed, but she could just keep going. You can go for up to 12 weeks, but you don't want more than 12 weeks because the estrogen builds up and then there's a risk of blood clot, etc. Or you could go on the pills, which I like because there's 40 different pills. If the first one doesn't work, I'm sure I can find a pill that works. And again, I would recommend for your daughter, given her ethnic background, a desogestrel birth control pill.
You, yeah. So Sophia, thank you so much. She could have joined it, but she's working the working time. But actually, if you would have lived in 1700 in previous life, you would have saved another extraordinary woman's life. I'm going to present that topic. Just So she's Sophia Yan from Pandia Health. She's always very good, presenting her topics. Let me. So this is a topic. It's a very provocative topic. Would you like to remember her for sex or science? I'm not. I'm not talking about Sophia. I'm talking about the lady in the pictures between Newton and and Einstein. Let me give you some. I'm going to bring both of us. Let me. This is a wrong one. So just to give me, let me give you this both of us together on the side. Just I'm still struggling with all these new things. Just to give me 1 second. Yeah. Okay. Okay. That's good. We are ready to go. So that's a Sophia Yan. So it is but by the way, today was announced a Nobel Prize in Physics 2023. I'm a physicist. I got to say that Pierre Agostini and Annie Lulia and Ferenc Krauss, they won the Nobel Prize for the movement. They take a picture of the movement of electrons, even the molecules. They want to see how the molecules are formed. So we are going inching towards the genesis of life soon. So this is the Nobel Prize winner today, announced today. So just I wanted to plug in. But anyway, they said about her, a great man whose only fault was being a woman. If you say that now, that person will be in a lot of trouble. That was a complimentary during the time. So they called her mistress, promiscuous, loose character, gambler. She's a perfect gambler, and that's what the name they called her. They called that kind of names. What happened? Who is she? Her name is Gabriella Emily de Châtelet. She was born in 1706. She is a French in Paris, France. She was born in Gabriella Emily de Châtelet, her name. She was part of the Enlightenment period in the Europe, between the late 17th century and the beginning of 18th century, middle of the 18th century. That is called the Enlightenment period. What is the Enlightenment period? Is reason over superstitions. A lot of superstitions were, particularly in the Western Europe, and the tolerance over hate. That was the religious tolerance. Is one of them is important thing. Science over belief. These are all things coming out. First time humanity was seeing the Enlightenment period during the time. She was born during one of the extraordinary scientists, Johannes Kepler, who did a planetary motions. Rene Descartes, he said, "Think I am, therefore I am." That is the philosopher Rene Descartes. Is also a scientist actually and mathematician. Baruch Spinoza, another philosopher, Einstein loved him. Immanuel Kant is a empiric formula. He believed in empiricism. Isaac Newton is a laws of gravity and motion. Gottfried Leibniz is a calculus and also mathematics and physics, contemporary to Newton. And Benjamin Franklin for light and electricity. Adam Smith is the father of economics. They were all born during that time, during that century. So she was in the middle of the Enlightenment baby. She is uh, Emily de Châtelet. So what is the she's a she's an outgoing lady, a party girl. Manazotwa, is a French word. She could sleep with the two men same time. That is came from France. French is a French. She is a gambler. She was partying quite a bit. She is during the time she's come from a nobility family. She's from aristocratic, rich family. She was born into a very wealthy family. She was gambling, and she got all kind of bad habits. You consider the nowadays. But I tell you, she is also curious and knowledge, and she was a seeker of knowledge and very curious. She was learning math and science same time. During the time, just hardly 50 to 100 years over, as calculus was just invented by Newton. Actually, very few people know about calculus at the time. Think about girls. Even now, the girls are scared of calculus. At that time, it is a very few know, even among men and women is a very few. You can count them with the fingers how much people know about calculus. She is one of them. She learned calculus very, she's a proficient in it. I tell you, she wrote a book of books on it. I will explain to you. She was also science. She worked on a lot of gravity related experiments, and then I tell you what she did, the extraordinary invention she did. What she did was next one is think about the prevailing belief in the 1700. Is the prevailing belief is thinking matter. All the rocks have a thinking power. That's what, when they move, when you throw a rock, they say that they have a thinking power inside. That is one of the prevailing beliefs just before 1700. Spontaneous generation, they thought inorganic chemistry produces the life. Automatically it produces life. Life comes out of a non-life. That's what the one of the beliefs. And then alchemy, that you combine all the materials, and you can create from a dust to gold. That is alchemy. So these are all prevailing beliefs in 1700. During that time, so Visviva is a life, is called a living force. A big debate. Visviva is called kinetic energy, basically what we call kinetic energy. During the Newton and all those people, they thought kinetic energy is proportional to speed. Faster you go, the energy is more. So if you throw a rock towards somebody, it hurts them. If you throw it much faster, it hurts them. The energy impact on the body is much more higher. It's just proportional. Big. They think that it's just a throw the speed. It is a proportional, directly proportional to the energy impacted. But that is not true. What she did was she was learning, she was crashing into men's parties all the times in Paris, Academy of Sciences meetings. So probably she was dressing like a man. She had a very ready-made clothes for her. This is it was told actually she was always in the bag. She was carrying men's clothes, and she was just jumping into the men's meetings. Probably they know who she was. Probably she slept with half of them, so they didn't say any one word. So she was learning science through participating in the men's meetings, crashing into the men only meetings quite a bit during the time. So she said that all they're arguing about the Visviva debate is a big, which is means living force, how the energy of the moving bodies is the infancy stage at the time, the equations, the energy of the moving bodies. So she said that forget about all these arguments. I'm going to do the experiments. And she built a chateau in outside of Paris, Surrey, and then she built a big house, they call big mansion. She built a mansion, and she wanted, in the basement she put a laboratory, and then she created a she's a wealthy, so her parents are from very wealthy family, they're nobilities. She created a library, comparable. They said that this library is comparable to the Academy of Sciences of Paris library. So she collected huge number of books, and then she did elaborate. She imported she imported sorry she imported lab equipment from England, actually from all other countries. So Germany and England, she imported. She's not playing games. She just wanted to show who she was. So, so what she proved is very gentleman. Is she told all of them are wrong. This is not a proportional to the speed. We were living force. Kinetic energy is not proportional to speed. It is proportional to v squared. That's where the squared comes there. She said that squaring is, the 2 square is 4, 4 square is 16. That's squared. It's a very exponential force. So if you are, for example, I'll give you an example of that to understand that. Car going with a 20 kilometers per hour, the energy is a 20 times. The energy is 20 times is not correct. It's not proportional to 20 times. Car going with a 20 kilometers per hour, the energy is 20 squared, 400 times. So every 1 mile per hour speed increase, your impact energy increases squared. That's why it's going 30 to 35, 35 to 40 miles per hour is a huge differences. That's why you have to be. So that's what she proved. That's a squared. That's what she's famous for. So Newton was not 100% sure about the squared part of it. She actually confronted in this all these men. So she is a scientific scholar. She was giving she was confronted even Newton, and nobody dared to even question the Newton at the time. She stood up and then said that it is squared. She firmly proved the experiments in her basement in the Surrey, that chateau. Then she gave a clues to the MC squared for Einstein. Albert Einstein came with that idea. The clue that came from that squared part of it came from here. E is equal to MC squared. That is where Albert Einstein got the clue. So she stood with the two giants of science, Newton and Albert Einstein. That's what I mean by she's in between the Newton and Albert Einstein. Is really, that's what she is, and scientifically she was. She connected both dots for both of them. The giants of man. She was she was a she was a she was a inverse square law. For example, that is the same law that applies now. That you reverse it a little bit. That is called, if you wanted ultrasound, if you're using ultrasound, I used to do mobile ultrasounds for a company. Then say that if you cannot the distance between the ultrasound and then if you just lift it up a little bit, even a millimeter's difference can make a huge difference in the energy of the sound waves coming back. So now we do that inverse square law. So it is pervading entire universe. Inverse square law is in the electricity. You will see in the ultrasound. You will see in the brachytherapy. Particularly brachytherapy is that when you put directly, Sophia can do that. You can tell me that you can put directly the radium and all those the radioactive materials directly on the tumors. So it has to be particularly has to be measured in millimeters, because that exponential law, the intensity dies. The moment you move a little bit away from it, that the intensity it dies. It's the inverse square law. Same thing. That's what she's famous for, that for the square law. That's why I call her squared. So she's a prolific scientific writer and scholar. She wrote. I can read all the. Maybe Sophia knows about French. I don't know much about French, but she was letters to the prevention of smallpox. Think about that. 1736. She wrote at the time. Small. There is no vaccines, but very all that they inject a small amount of smallpox into the body, and then it creates immunity for them. So she wrote in the defense of the vaccines in 1736. Think about that. That is a letter she wrote. She was a concept of happiness and the moral philosophy. She wrote a essay on it. Actually, Immanuel Kant, they said that he copied from her, such a giant of philosopher, that there was proof that he copied from here some of the ideas. So there was a guy, there was a scientific establishment just wrote was were criticizing her. So what she did was to tell you that she is not a person to put up with. She wrote a book in defense of all her arguments. And one of the guys actually resigned from the Academy of Sciences because she was so good. She really did. So she wrote a book and fully, really proved it. The next one is dissertation on the nature of propagation of fire, which is a kind of the fire, the heat to propagation, basically, convection, convection, all of them. She gave a loss. First time she gave a lot of letters to the, in the 1738. She was the woman, prolific. She's a scholar. She is a writer, prolific writer, and she was so what happened was she's an influencer. She was already famous in Germany. She German Academy of Sciences admitted her first time, first woman to be admitted in the German woman's publication. They published the first time woman's publication. They did in German famous Institute of Physics. I think the Institute of Physics, basically, of the German Academy of Physics. That's you think about Germany. The physics is a center of the universe at the time. So they allowed a one woman to publish her paper. That means she is a very valid scientist. Academy of Science of Bologna. She was actually given membership. She first woman to be elected member in the 1732 in the Academy of Bologna, Italy. She was a member. So she was really broke a lot of records. Um, so she's a loving mother. She has three children. She was actually teaching them. She was an excellent mother. She was a she. What she the mathematics books she didn't like it. She started writing her own books for teaching kids. She was that good. So she had three children, but she's always party woman, a little bit. So that caught up with her. She was actually monumental translation of Principia, the Principia of Newton's laws of gravity and laws of gravity. She was translating to French. That was the biggest undertaking she took it, and then she did. Even today, that is the standard book in France, a book for the Newton's book of Principia. So the next one is that she's a dangerous, lesions she had. That's where probably Sophia could have saved her if she was alive if she had a previous life, she was there around. She was pregnant at the age of 40. That's like a death sentence during the time, that no protection there. Maybe they don't, I don't know what kind of protections they were following at the time. So she got pregnant by a soldier, Um, so Sophia, you can jump in anytime. Tell me. So it was there was no protection. She got pregnant. That's a death sentence for her. And extraordinary woman. She should not be remembered for sex, but she should be remembered for science and squared, unwavering passion for science. She's a truly a woman of science. And then that she was final chapters. She had a baby. She gave a birth to a child. I don't know the boy or girl. I think it's a girl. I remember. She was at the age of 42. She died with embolism because there is nothing that they could do during the time. She wrote the final chapter, sample on her table, and she died.
Ah,
Extraordinary woman. She finished that book, and then final chapter she wrote after 1 week after the birth she died. What do you think of that woman? She was a Gabriella. She was Professor Judith Genser from Miami University of Miami wrote a book on her. It's called A Daring Genius of Enlightenment. There's a book, you can buy it from Amazon. And Georgia woman, Atlanta woman, Lauren Gunderson, she did a play, very famous play actually. Gabriella Emily DeChattelet play is a very good Broadway play, and she's a award-winning play. So I think is one of the extraordinary women of history in science, Gabriella Emily Thank you for listening. Let me bring a little bit that I wanted to bring. What do you think of it, Sophia?
Amazing. I'm sad that we never heard of her name anywhere in my education, physics in high school or at MIT. So I really appreciate you highlighting all the women in science that are unsung.
And so, particularly women, you think about that. I don't know what the mechanisms during the time was to prevent a pregnancy. I don't know how the woman stopped that process during the time. So a lot of women must have died. I mean, if she's a royal and she died, and think about that. So many women died because they got pregnant during the later stages of their life, right?
Yes. Yes. No, there's still women that die today in birth if they don't have the right health care, particularly in third world, impoverished countries where the women just bleed out.
Unbelievable. So I think you're saving some of them through your pandiahealth.com. Sophia Yan is a. So, Pandi, tell me a little bit about Pandia Health. Just what do you do, and how can they contact you? Is a little bit
Yes.
give a background of Pandia Health.
Please check out Pandia Health. Pan is every, Dia is day. So that helps you remember how to spell it. Pandia health.com. And that's our website. We also are on all the social media. So we're building our TikTok, Insta, Facebook, YouTube, and just our website has tons of information on birth control, on acne. We're about to launch menopause, and know that we can prescribe in 17 states. We can deliver to all 50 states. And it's only $30 once a year to use our expert birth control doctors who know how to use that algorithm to find you the best birth control pill so you have the least amount of side effects right from the beginning, rather than having to try 3 different pills, as many of us had to, until you find the right one for you. So thank you so much for letting me share Pandia Health. And if you want the best birth control care, come to us. If you want to make periods optional, come to us. And we're about to launch the best, one of the best menopause care out there.
Thank you. And actually, you introduced me somebody that I'm going to interview next month for the menopause, on the woman's menopause. Yeah, the man. So I'm going to. I have a lot of friends who are in the going through menopause stage. I can bring them. The young children are not. The people are not that age of teenagers are not on my system, but that you can your friend is going to talk about menopause. Thank you so much, Sophia. Thank you. It's an honor and a truly a privilege to talk with you.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate this podcast. I think you cover such important topics and, highlighting women in the past that deserve better recognition.